Hello, everyone. The fighting is still going on intensively in Ukraine. However, nothing of significance happened. Ukraine successfully was able to stop Russia. We are now waiting for Russia to send in the reinforcements, around 15,000 that they were able to gather. And we're expecting that when those 15,000 are going to come in, that's when some kind of additional push by Russia will happen. But all in all, we don't expect Russians to advance anymore. Most of the analysts agree that Russia has completely exhausted their attacking potential, and they're now trying to see their plan through in winter. And to discuss that, rather than discussing the map today, we're gonna use some other map. We're gonna use the map of the world, and we're gonna talk about who are the friends and foe of Ukraine, and what we can expect in the coming winter. Let us discuss then the situation of what the Russian plan is and what we can expect in the coming winter. So obviously Russia is now trying to defend the territories that it captured. And as some of analysts are saying, that basically their only Hail Mary plan that they have right now is to get to winter and then leverage the gas and resource dependencies that they still have over Europe, as well as try to leverage the tiredness and apathy from the democracies around the world to say that there is no chance that Ukraine can win this war, and therefore they should just cave in and start negotiating with Russia. It is obvious that this is what their plan is. They are not having the military power to advance. They need a pause, and that pause is not coming. But let's discuss and take somewhat a pessimistic view of the world and discuss who are the friends and foes of Ukraine. And I want to right away say that if I'm going to be talking about some of the countries and their support within those countries to Ukraine, if you do feel strongly of supporting Ukraine, please don't get offended. I'm just trying to draw a pessimistic picture. If it's not as pessimistic, it's good. But let's try to look at the worst case scenario to say. So first things first, we have two enemy states for Ukraine that they're fighting against. I would say that we can also add Iran to it, because it's definitely not a friendly state. Next, let's add some friends that we all know of Ukraine. It is definitely the Baltic states, Poland. I would say also UK is very much a friend of Ukraine. And we can probably say that Slovakia, Czechia, and I'm not completely sure about the Balkan countries. They seem to support Ukraine quite strongly. So I want to color them, but I'm going to hold on because those countries are still not completely sure if they will be supporting Ukraine because they're kind of far away. But I really hope that they are. And then let's talk about the yellow countries. The yellow countries are the countries that are seemingly supporting Ukraine. Well, let's put it not yellow, let's put it orange. It's the countries that seemingly support Ukraine, but it seems that they might cave in. So the first one is Turkey. Turkey, we know it's Erdogan. So it doesn't seem that Erdogan is really a big friend of Ukraine. He's playing his own game. So whenever it's going to be more useful for him to stand by Russia, we can easily expect him to switch allegiances, despite him saying that Crimea is Ukraine just recently. It's a dictatorial regime, so it might easily switch to whatever we want. I also want to cover Germany and France a lot, mostly because Germany and France, they are very dependent on, different positions. Germany is still very dependent, and the support for Ukraine in Germany is very shaky. In Germany, Ukraine is being supported by a very slim majority. Some even are reporting that it's a minority even. by this point. And most of the support saying that we should support Ukraine, but we should do it peacefully, we should not send arms. And obviously, the economic freedoms for Germany are more relevant than supporting a country. And it seems that Germany, as it stands, is probably the weakest link in the European Union right now. So, especially now with the reports saying that almost the left-leaning wing of the SPD, the Scholz's party, is now very much shifting towards saying that we should stop supporting Ukraine and we should start negotiating with Russia. France, it is kind of supporting Ukraine a lot, but we know that Macron is really under big pressure. His biggest opponent is a big pro-Russian group that really want to be friends with Russia, and he does feel pressure on it, so he was not very much supportive, and we see that any kind of support for Ukraine has been kind of drying down from coming from France. But overall, France is just a little bit more stable than Germany. Then Italy, I will color it the same, mostly because Italy is right now unstable in their government, and we know that Italy's government is a roll of a dice, what it's going to come down to. It might be that they will be very much Eurosceptic, for example, but still support Ukraine, or they might completely cave into Russia. There is chances for it. There is also Austria. Austria has shown itself also to be very much in opposition to any kind of military support for Ukraine. And if it comes to that, Germany, for example, says that no, we should not extend sanctions, we should start talking with Russia, I'm almost completely certain that Austria will support Germany's decision, and we'll see this. So those are the countries that are showing. Oh, and obviously, wow, how could I forget Hungary? Well, I mean, Hungary is just looking for a way out of this. They want to essentially start negotiating with Russia and trading with Russia, and just get as soon as possible. That's pretty much the picture, essentially, where are the weakest links. All the rest, we can clearly say that they are mostly yellow. I would say even like yellow-greenish is these countries for sure. Romania, Moldova, Bulgaria. Oh, Greece is actually also this weird orange country, because Greece has been very much against any kind of sanctions against Russia that are dealing with terrorism. So for Greece, it feels that they don't see the threat to democracy. They are very much looking up their interest, and I think it might come down to their history with Germany, and that basically now that Germany has problems, that the whole European Union, because of the German dependency on gas, now the whole European Union has to pay. But when Greece had the problems, then it was all put on the Greece. So whatever it is, it doesn't feel that the Greece are in a strong position to support Ukraine, unfortunately. And then I'm going to color the Balkan countries, all except for Serbia. So Serbia are going to go, I would actually color them red, to be honest. Serbia is definitely no friend of Ukraine, and Ukraine is no friend of Serbia. And yeah. And the countries that probably are also actually Portugal, Spain, they did essentially vote against not Ukrainian, but Russian tourist visa ban. So it's not completely clear. But I'm going to color them light green, light yellow, just to be optimistic about it. As much I want to paint this as a pessimistic scenario, I still hope that there is still more support, for example, in Spain for unified countries because of the situation with Catalonia. So they will not accept any kind of breakaway regions or the regions that were taken from it. At least I'm hoping. And Portugal, that's a country that actually I've heard the least about. That would be the most probably grayish, as I heard. And especially I also heard quite not quite a lot by Ireland, but Ireland has been traditionally very neutral. So I think they're going to stay pretty much neutral in this sense. And another country that I want to color is obviously US and Canada. Though Canada, I would actually say, with the population of, or not population, with such a strong Canadian minority of Ukrainians that are in Canada, I would say that Canada is pretty firmly in support of Ukraine. And US, on one side, I really want to color them green. However, we know how tough it might be if United States start dealing with their internal politics. And with somewhat of an election cycle kind of coming up slowly but surely, like it's appearing more and more in news, also US is being the biggest donor for Ukraine, it is now becoming tougher to consider that they will continue supporting Ukraine in the long run. This is especially true as we see that it seems that the plan of United States are to essentially squeeze Russia out. So what I'm afraid of about the negative scenario this winter is that because Russia is going to hold on to the territories that it's controlling right now in Ukraine, it's going to essentially propose and say, let's go into the negotiations table, let's start talking. And because the support from the countries all around the world hasn't been as strong, mostly, especially from the United States, where it's still holding on to a lot of the equipment, Ukraine is able to stop Russia, but it is not completely sure if Ukraine will be able to overturn the war. And if Russia will hold on, we're returning to the video, The Big Ukrainian Gamble. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend go and see it. And while you're at it, take your time, help other people see this video, press the subscribe, like whatever YouTube does. Any kind of interaction you do, write a comment, helps this video to be shown to other people and picked up by YouTube algorithm, so more people will find out about this, and then we have more people seeing this and understanding how important the situation around Ukraine is coming into winter. So in US, the situation might be that they're going to be overtaken by the internal politics. And if we're following the discussion on the Big Ukrainian Gamble about the fact that Ukraine said that they will take Kherson area back, and if they will not have any significant advancements before the winter, for example, then we might come into winter with a lot of internal discussion in both Europe and US saying, does weapons that we provide, do they even do anything? For a lot of military experts, they see the strategic failure of Russia. I'm explaining to you the strategic failure of Russia. Most of you following the situation know just in how dire situation Russia is. They are literally holding on by the thread of it. But for a person that is not following the war in Ukraine, he opens the map and he sees that nothing is happening. He doesn't see that there is a lot of shelling, that there is a lot of attacks, counterattacks, that Russians are trapped essentially on the north bank of the river. All of that is unseen. The only thing is that he sees that for the last 6 months, the map didn't really change. So he thinks, a common citizen would think, that the situation is just stable, that all is good, that now Ukraine is ready to negotiate and it's a frozen conflict. And to end the frozen conflict, the parties should negotiate. And this is my kind of thing that I'm afraid of. Especially because Pentagon is withholding a lot of the weapons. We see more and more that the main kind of opposition to supplying more weapons to Ukraine is actually coming from Pentagon. It's their assessment that apparently President Biden is waiting, sorry, I cannot pronounce this word, is putting a lot of weight in. And it is very sad to see that they are withholding some weapons because they don't see the need for Ukraine, whereas we certainly would love to see Ukraine get weapons that allow them to strike for example, inside of Russian territory. And also this weird rule that Ukraine should not strike into Russian territory. So Russia is okay shooting about 1,500 cruise missiles into Ukraine, killing all the thousands and thousands of innocent civilians. But whoa, if Ukraine fires something into Russia, well, that's a third world. Wow. So that's the situation, and we should hopefully expect, like, I think that the biggest change that we're looking for is Ukraine need to make decision. Ukrainians and Ukraine command will need to make decision in the coming 2 months. I think because they took the gamble in Kherson, they need to act on the gamble. They need to go in and take the Kherson area despite the losses. This might sound harsh, especially because obviously Ukraine wants to save lives of as many soldiers as possible. But at this point, we will need during the winter to show these yellow, reddish countries that Ukraine does indeed can indeed win, and show people in the United States that is now like what it was 52% right now that is in support sending weapons to Ukraine. And there are more and more Russian trolls and propaganda saying that, wow, did you know that weapons in Ukraine are not being tracked? Yes, they are. If you read past the propaganda news around US and you actually try to follow Google a little bit, you actually know that US has sent multiple missions to Ukraine to track where the weapons are going and where is it locating and how is the distribution coming. So there has been a lot of analysis and audit about the weapons in Ukraine. So most of the news around that are complete bullshit. That's basically it for today. Let's meet up on this Sunday. I will be looking forward to seeing you in a live stream. If you cannot make it, their live stream will be in recording, and I'm going to try to make it exciting for you both to participate in a live version of it and also watch it later on in recording.